Hello, everybody. Welcome back to week 4 of our 10-week series on evangelism, which is inspired by the J. Mack Stiles book, How Do I Get Started in Evangelism? Today, we're going to talk about living the gospel, which we read about in pages 26 through 30 of your book. In Galatians chapter 2, verse 14, Paul says, "I saw that there was conduct not in step with the truth of the gospel." Now, according to Paul, a Christian must align their life with the gospel message. Living out your Christian convictions isn't the gospel itself, but our lives must reflect the truth of the gospel. Paul understood that a Christian responds to the gospel with their whole life. It shapes everything about us. Jesus' followers must live a gospel-centered life. And Paul's confrontation with Peter in Galatians shows us how our lives should reflect the gospel, and not just parts of our life, but our whole life. Now, some people think that the gospel is just the doorway to becoming a Christian. But nothing in the Christian life is separate from the gospel. And nothing is more profound than the gospel itself. It's not just a first step, it's actually the hub of the Christian life. Every aspect of our lives should lead us back to it. For instance, the gospel affects how we raise our children. In the book, the author shares a story about a time when a friend corrected his kids, and afterwards his wife pointed out, "Honey, you were right, but I didn't hear the gospel in your correction." You see, we need gospel grace in parenting, in our marriages, and in how we treat our neighbors and everyone around us. And Paul roots his instructions to husbands and wives also in the gospel. In Ephesians chapter 5, verse 32, he explains that marriage is a display of Christ's union with the church. Husbands should love their wives as Christ loves the church, and wives should submit to their husbands as the church submits to Christ. So you might be asking at this point, what does this have to do with evangelism? Discovering the gospel-centered life is like being born again. See, as we apply the gospel to every situation, we keep it front and center in our lives. This growing love for Christ naturally is going to flow into our evangelism. So I ask the question, do you want to get started in evangelism? If so, be so in love with Jesus, so grateful for his sacrifice, so amazed by his grace that you can't help but share the gospel message. The more we apply the gospel to our lives, the more we tell others about it, creating a very beautiful, healthy, spiritual cycle. Remember, his mercy and love should overflow in your life, compelling you to share your faith. None of us are going to get it right all the time. We all still need that courage to speak up. And that's what we're going to talk about next week when we cover having confidence in the gospel, which is going to be found on pages 30 to 33 of your book. I want to thank you once again for joining us today. Remember, living the gospel is essential to our witness. Stay tuned for our next session. God bless you all.